Let me tell you something that changes everything. When a woman wants you, really wants you, she doesn't come out and say it directly. She speaks in code. She drops phrases that sound innocent on the surface but carry an entirely different weight underneath. And here's what most men get completely wrong. They're listening for the obvious signals while missing the ones that actually matter. I've been on her side of this conversation more times than I can count. That moment where every part of me is hoping he'll finally understand what I'm actually asking. These phrases are her way of telling you she's ready, without having to say the words herself. 1. She asks if you've ever done something you couldn't take back. You're deep in conversation, maybe on her couch, maybe in a quiet corner somewhere, and she looks at you with a different kind of attention. Then she asks it, have you ever done something you couldn't take back? Most guys hear this and start mentally scrolling through their regrets. They answer literally. They miss what's actually happening. She's not asking about your past. She's asking about your next 10 minutes. She's testing whether you understand that some doors, once opened, change the shape of everything that follows. What she really wants to know is whether you're the kind of man who can handle crossing a line with her, whether you'll panic afterward, whether you'll treat it like something worth protecting. Your response here matters more than you realize. Don't list your mistakes. Hold her gaze for a beat longer than feels comfortable and say something like, I think the things worth doing usually are. Watch her reaction carefully. If she holds your gaze back, she just got her answer about you. 2. She mentions she's been thinking about you at inconvenient times. She says it almost like a confession. I keep thinking about you at weird times. Maybe she laughs when she says it to soften the weight. Maybe she looks away. But the words are out, and now they're sitting between you both. Here's what most men miss entirely. This isn't a compliment. This is an admission that her thoughts have slipped beyond her control. Inconvenient means intrusive. It means lying in bed at night. It means sitting in a meeting and losing track of what someone said because your face crossed her mind uninvited. When a woman tells you that you've invaded the parts of her day she can't manage, she's confessing that her body is already responding to you before anything has happened. The psychological mechanism here is anticipation arousal. Her mind has been rehearsing scenarios involving you. She's essentially telling you that the mental foreplay has already started without you even being present. Most men hear this and say something deflective like, oh really? That's sweet. They fumble the moment completely. Instead, lean into it. Ask her, what kind of thoughts? Let your voice drop slightly. Give her permission to tell you more. Because she wants to tell you more, she's been waiting for you to ask. 3. She asks what you'd do if she moved closer right now. The air shifts. She's looking at you differently. And then she asks, what would you do if I moved closer right now? This is not a hypothetical question. This is a test dressed as curiosity. She already knows what she wants to do. What she doesn't know is whether you'll meet her there. Most men freeze when they hear this. Their brain short circuits between, is she serious? And, what's the right answer? And by the time they've processed it, the moment has cooled. Here's what's really happening. She's doing the emotional work of initiating while giving you the physical responsibility of closing the gap. She's asking you to show her, not tell her, that you want the same thing. The worst response is a verbal one. Don't say, I'd probably kiss you, or, I don't know, what would you do? These answers put the tension back on her when she's already done the harder part of creating it. Instead, say nothing. Hold her eyes, let 1 second pass, then close the distance yourself, even if it's just 6 inches closer. Your movement answers her question better than any words could. If you match her energy with action, the next few moments become inevitable. If this video is hitting different because you're ready to stop missing signals, type ready in the comments, so we can see who's actually applying this. 4. She tells you her hands are shaking and shows you. She holds her hand out toward you. Look, she says, I'm actually shaking, and you see the slight tremor. Maybe she laughs nervously. Maybe she doesn't. Most guys interpret this as anxiety and try to comfort her. They say something like, it's okay, don't be nervous. They pat her hand. They accidentally reframe the moment as something she needs to recover from instead of something she wants to move toward. But here's what she's really showing you. Visible physiological arousal is one of the most vulnerable things a woman can reveal. She's showing you that her body is responding, that she's not performing calm, that she's feeling this. It's an invitation disguised as a confession. What she wants is not reassurance. She wants you to acknowledge that you see her, that you're affected too, and that the trembling is mutual. Take her hand when she offers it. Don't pat it. Hold it. Look at her and say something like, I feel it too. Let the silence do the rest. 5. She asks if you can keep a secret. She lowers her voice slightly, even if you're already alone. Then she asks, Can you keep a secret? Now most men respond immediately. Of course, they say, eager and earnest, and then they wait for the secret. But they've already missed the point. The question was never about your trustworthiness. When a woman asks if you can keep a secret in a charged moment, she's preparing to say something that makes her feel exposed. She's not asking whether you're discreet with information. She's asking whether you're safe for vulnerability, whether the thing she's about to reveal will be held gently or carelessly. Often, the secret she shares is something about how she feels about you, or something about what she's imagining. She's essentially asking for permission to be more honest than the situation normally allows. The shift that changes everything. Don't just say yes, say it slower. Depends on the secret. Smile slightly. Let her feel that you understand the game she's playing. When she tells you what it is, and it's almost always something that signals desire, don't rush past it. Let it land. That moment of silence after her secret is where everything pivots. 6. She mentions she's not wearing what she normally would. It sounds like a throwaway comment. I don't usually dress like this, she says, adjusting her sleeve or glancing down at herself. Here's what most men do. They compliment her appearance. You look great, they say. And then they move on, completely missing the door she just opened. Because this isn't about the clothes. When a woman tells you she's dressed differently than usual, especially if she's dressed in something subtly more revealing, or softer, or more deliberate, she's telling you that she made a choice with you in mind. She thought about tonight. She thought about how she wanted to feel, and she's admitting that the version of her you're seeing was assembled for this moment, for you. The real signal here is intentionality. She's saying that this encounter wasn't casual for her. She prepared. She wanted to feel a certain way in front of you. Most men hear the surface words and miss the subtext entirely. Acknowledge the choice, not just the result. Try. What made you choose something different tonight? Watch her reaction. You've just told her that you noticed the intention, not just the outfit, and that distinction matters more than you know. 7. She asks if you think tension is supposed to feel like this. The room has gotten quieter somehow. There's a specific quality to the silence. Weighted, expectant. And then she asks it, is tension supposed to feel like this? She's not asking for a definition. She's asking you to name what's happening between you both out loud. Most men hear this question and deflect. They make a joke. They say, I don't know, you tell me. They do anything to avoid being the one to acknowledge the elephant that's been sitting between you for the last hour. But here's what she needs. She needs you to confirm that you feel it too. The question is her way of checking whether this electricity is mutual or whether she's been imagining something one-sided. This is a pivotal moment. If you deflect, you introduce doubt. If you confirm, you accelerate everything. Look at her directly. I don't think it's supposed to feel like anything else. Or simply, I think this is exactly what it's supposed to feel like. You've just validated that you're both standing on the same edge. 8. She tells you she almost texted you something last night but deleted it. She mentions it casually, almost like it slipped out by accident. I almost texted you something last night, but I deleted it. Most men hear this and ask the obvious. What did it say? Which isn't wrong. But the way you ask determines what happens next. If you ask with casual curiosity, she'll downplay it. She'll say, oh, nothing important, and the moment disappears. The truth is, deleted texts are the graveyard of things people wanted to say but couldn't justify. When she tells you about a message she wrote and erased, she's telling you that you've been occupying her thoughts in ways she wasn't ready to show you. She wrote something vulnerable, something possibly explicit, something that felt too much for the context you've established. Until now. Here's how you shift the moment. Don't ask casually. Lower your voice slightly. What would you have said if you hadn't deleted it? The change in your tone gives her permission to reconstruct the message. You're telling her that this context right now can hold whatever she was afraid to send. Most of the time, she'll tell you something that changes the direction of the night completely. 9. She asks if you've noticed the way she's been looking at you. She's been holding your gaze differently all night. You've felt it, even if you couldn't name it. And then she asks, have you noticed the way I've been looking at you? This is one of the most direct signals a woman will give before explicit words. Most men panic here. They weren't sure if they'd been reading things correctly, and now they're being put on the spot. Some deflect with humor. Some lie and say they hadn't noticed. Both responses fail the test. What she's really asking is whether you've been paying attention, whether you've been tracking what she's been communicating without words. She wants to know that her signals have landed, that the effort she's put into showing you her interest wasn't wasted. The correct response is confirmation without arrogance. I noticed. I wasn't sure if I should say something. This tells her 3 things at once. You were paying attention, you were affected by it, and you were respectful enough to let her lead. That combination is exactly what she was hoping to hear. The next move is usually hers, and she'll make it quickly once she knows you received what she was sending. 10. She mentions she had to talk herself into coming tonight. She admits it almost like she's embarrassed. I almost didn't come tonight. I had to talk myself into it. Most men interpret this as insecurity or ambivalence. They reassure her, I'm glad you came. And they miss the deeper layer entirely. When a woman tells you she had to convince herself to show up, she's not saying she didn't want to see you. She's saying the opposite. She's saying that seeing you felt high stakes, that she was nervous about what might happen, that the possibility of tonight was significant enough to create hesitation, not because she wasn't interested, but because she was almost too interested. This is her way of confessing that she walked into this evening knowing it could change things. She prepared herself for the possibility of something happening. The internal debate she had before arriving was about whether she was ready for where this might go. Here's how to respond. Don't just tell her you're glad she's there. Tell her you understand. I almost texted you twice before I left. I get it. Now she knows you both walked in nervous, which means you both walked in expecting the same thing. That mutual admission accelerates everything that follows. 11. She asks what's stopping you. The conversation has reached a different temperature. You're close, closer than friends sit. And then she asks it quietly, almost like a dare. What's stopping you? Most men stumble here because the question feels like a trap. They start listing practical concerns. They mention timing, or not wanting to ruin the friendship, or uncertainty about what she wants. Every word they say builds a wall she was hoping they'd tear down. Here's what she's actually asking. She's already decided she wants something to happen. The question isn't curiosity. It's an invitation with a thin disguise. She's telling you that from her side, there are no obstacles. She's asking why you're still treating the gap between you like it needs to exist. The only wrong answer is a list of reasons. The right answer is movement. Silence first. Hold her gaze. Then close whatever distance remains, physical or verbal. If you need words, make them minimal. Nothing anymore. Then show her what that means. She asked this question because she wanted to stop waiting. Don't make her wait any longer. 12. She tells you she's thought about this conversation before it happened. She says it like she's revealing something fragile. I've actually thought about this before. This exact conversation. Most men hear this and feel flattered but confused. They don't know what to do with the information. They say something like, really? That's interesting, and let the moment float past. But this admission is heavier than it sounds. When a woman tells you she's pre-imagined your interaction, she's confessing that you've been living in her head. She's rehearsed what she might say. She's imagined how you might respond. The conversation you're having right now has already been drafted in her mind, probably multiple times, probably late at night. This is anticipatory fantasy made visible. She's telling you that the mental and emotional groundwork for intimacy has already been laid on her side. You're not at the beginning of something. You're catching up to where she's already been. The question becomes, will you match her there? Acknowledge the weight of what she's shared. What happened next? In the version you imagined? You're giving her permission to narrate her own fantasy out loud. That question alone can transform the entire trajectory of your night. 13. She asks if you think she's being too obvious. There's a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. Am I being too obvious right now? Here's what most men miss completely. This question sounds like insecurity, but it's actually permission-seeking. She's not worried about being obvious. She's checking whether her signals have been clear enough. She's asking if you've received what she's been transmitting, and whether it's safe to keep going. The fear underneath her question isn't that she's been too forward. It's that she's been forward and you haven't responded, which would mean rejection. She needs confirmation that her openness is being met, not just observed. The worst response is reassurance without reciprocation. No, you're fine, tells her nothing about where you stand. It leaves her exposed without joining her there. Instead, match her vulnerability with your own. You're only obvious if I've been obvious too. Or, I was hoping you'd be more obvious. Both responses tell her the same thing, that you're on the same page, that her risk was worth taking, and that you're ready to meet her wherever this goes. Watch how quickly her body language shifts once she knows she's not alone in what she's feeling. 14. She mentions she can't focus when you're this close. You've drifted closer during the conversation. Maybe your knees are touching. Maybe your faces are only a foot apart. And she says it softly, I can't focus when you're this close. Most men interpret this as a cue to back off. They create space because they think they've made her uncomfortable. They apologize for the proximity without realizing they've just extinguished the spark she was trying to fan. This phrase is not a complaint. It's an admission of arousal. When a woman tells you that your closeness is affecting her ability to think, she's describing what happens when physical attraction overwhelms cognitive function. She's telling you her body is responding to yours. She can't focus because her nervous system is busy processing the electricity between you. Don't retreat. Hold your position. Lower your voice to match the new proximity. That makes two of us. You've just confirmed that the effect is mutual, and that neither of you needs to pretend otherwise anymore. The conversation that follows will sound different because you've both acknowledged what's actually happening in the space between you. 15. She asks if you're going to make her say it. She's looking at you with an expression that mixes frustration with desire. Are you really going to make me say it? This is the moment most men fumble catastrophically. Some think she's annoyed with them. Some genuinely don't know what it refers to. Some ask her to clarify, which forces her to either over-explain or retreat. Here's what's actually happening. She's been signaling all night. She's dropped hints, shifted closer, held your gaze longer than necessary, and you, for whatever reason, haven't made a move. She's now at the edge of her willingness to lead. She's asking if you're going to require her to spell out her desire explicitly, which feels exposing and unsexy compared to being met halfway. This question is your final cue. The answer is not verbal. The answer is action. Move toward her. Close the remaining distance. Let your hand find her waist or her face. Show her that you understood everything she's been saying without words, and that you were just waiting for the right moment. The phrase she didn't want to say out loud becomes irrelevant once you make it clear you heard her anyway. You being here right now already separates you from the guys who bounced. Back that effort with a like. Then subscribe and hit the bell so you keep stacking these small wins every time a new video drops. 16. She tells you she's never said this out loud before. Her voice drops. She looks away for a moment before meeting your eyes again. I've never actually said this out loud to anyone before. Most men lean forward eagerly at this point, waiting for the revelation. They treat it like a cliffhanger they need resolved. They miss that the preamble itself is the message. When a woman tells you she's about to share something unprecedented, she's not just building suspense. She's telling you that you've become someone singular to her, someone she trusts enough to hold what she's never released before. What follows, whether it's a confession of desire, a fantasy, or something she's been afraid to admit, is less important than the fact that she chose you to hear it. This is radical vulnerability offered as a gift. Don't receive it casually. When she finishes speaking, don't rush to respond. Let the silence hold what she said for a moment. Then, thank you for telling me that. Simple, but it communicates that you understand what it cost her, and that the trust wasn't misplaced. What happens next typically unfolds on its own, because she's just handed you a piece of herself she's never given anyone else, and that kind of intimacy has its own momentum. 17. She asks if you know what happens next. The air between you has thickened. Everything has been building toward this specific moment, and then she asks, do you know what happens next? This is not a genuine question. She's not asking for your prediction. She's asking whether you're aware that a threshold has been reached and whether you're ready to cross it with her. Most men falter because they try to answer literally. They say something like, I'm not sure, or what do you mean? Both responses force her to either explain the obvious or retreat from the ledge she just walked onto. Here's the psychological mechanism. She's reached the limit of what she can communicate indirectly. She's asking you to take over the lead because she's done everything she can to bring you here. This question is her handing you the responsibility for what comes next. Take it. Don't answer with words. Let your response be physical, moving closer, touching her face, leaning in. The answer to her question should be something she feels, not something she hears. When you respond with action, you're telling her that yes, you know exactly what happens next, and you're ready to make it happen. 18. She mentions she's been waiting for you to notice something. She says it with a mixture of hope and exasperation. I've been waiting for you to notice something all night. Most men immediately start scanning her outfit, her hair, her surroundings. They think it's a test of observation. They start guessing. New earrings? Did you do something different with your hair? Each wrong guess makes her feel more invisible. But she's not talking about an accessory. She's talking about the way she's been looking at you, the way she's positioned her body toward yours, the way she's laughed a little too long at things that weren't that funny, the way she's touched your arm during conversation. She's been signaling all night, and she's asking if any of it landed. This is her expressing that she's done the work of showing interest, and she needs to know if it mattered. Don't guess at objects. Name the truth. I noticed. I've been trying to figure out if I was reading you right. This response tells her that her signals weren't wasted, that you've been paying attention, and that your hesitation came from wanting to be sure, not from lack of interest. That distinction matters more than you know. It transforms her frustration into relief and relief into permission. 19. She asks if you'd think differently of her afterward. Her voice gets quieter. There's a flicker of uncertainty she's been hiding. Would you think differently of me? After? This question stops most men because they don't understand why she's asking. Things were progressing. The energy was right. And now she's introducing doubt. Here's what's actually happening beneath the words. She wants this. She's ready for this. But somewhere in her mind is a fear that intimacy will change how you see her. That desire, once acted on, will make her less in your eyes rather than more. That you'll get what you wanted and then view her through a different lens. This is the residue of 1,000 cultural messages women absorb. That wanting is shameful. That acting on desire invites judgment. That men categorize women based on how quickly they say yes. She's not doubting herself. She's doubting whether you're safe. Your answer to this question determines everything. Don't dismiss it. Don't say, of course not, too quickly. Meet her eyes and speak slowly. I'd think about you more, not differently. Let her see that you mean it. What she's really asking is whether desire will cost her your respect. Show her it won't, and you've just removed the last barrier she was carrying. 20. She says she trusts you to understand what she's not saying. The conversation has reached a point where words feel insufficient. She looks at you with an intensity that feels different from before. And then she says, I trust you to understand what I'm not saying. This is not a cop-out. This is not vague communication. This is the final signal. The one that separates men who get it from men who don't. She's telling you that she said everything she's capable of saying directly. The rest, the desire, the invitation, the readiness, exists in the space between her words. She's asking if you're someone who can read that space, someone who doesn't need everything spelled out, someone who can meet her in the subtext. Most men wait for explicit instruction. They need certainty before action, but she's telling you that certainty lives in what she hasn't said, and she's trusting you to find it there. This is your moment. Don't ask clarifying questions. Don't wait for more information. Everything you need is already in front of you. Move toward her. Let your actions speak the language she's been using all night. When you respond to what she hasn't said, you prove that you understood everything, and that understanding is exactly what she's been looking for. Understanding these phrases doesn't mean pressuring anything. It simply means recognizing when desire has already surfaced, quietly, and knowing how to respond when it does. Because these moments rarely stay open forever. They either move forward or they close. And that timing is what usually determines whether anything happens at all. Once you start hearing what she's really saying, the next thing you might notice is something deeper, a level of desire that doesn't wait for perfect moments or subtle hints. Some women operate with a drive that shows up differently, more directly, more consistently, more intensely than you'd expect. The next video breaks down exactly what that looks like, the specific things women with high sex drives actually do, and why most men completely misread the signs. If you've ever wondered whether her interest ran deeper than she was showing, that video will change how you see everything.